Ethereal, sensual, and surreal. These are all words to describe the English rock band Lush. While they never achieved the critical and commercial success of some of their contemporaries, the band delivered a unique sound that one Rate Your Music user described as if David Lynch was the primary songwriter behind ABBA and it was produced by Robin Guthrie. It's time Lush received some recognition of their own, rather than being lumped together with countless other shoegaze groups of the early 1990s. Miki, Berenyi, and Emma Anderson have been school friends since their teenage years in the early 1980s. Prior to the formation of Lush, Berenyi and Anderson performed individually with different groups. The band officially formed in 1987 in London, and they originally called themselves Baby Machines. The initial lineup included Meriel Barham on vocals, Anderson on guitar and vocals, Berenyi on guitar and vocals, Steve Rippon on bass guitar, and Chris Acland on drums. Acland was Berenyi's boyfriend at the time. Lush's early days consisted of punk rock music. Anderson commented on the band's beginnings, "Basically, our idea was to have extremely loud guitars with much weaker vocals, and really, the vocals were weaker due to nervousness. We'd always be going, turn them down, turn them down." A year after Lush formed, Barham would leave the band to form Pale Saints. Now without a lead singer, Berenyi reluctantly stepped up to be vocalist. In 1989, Lush was signed to 4AD Records, a UK-based record label that had signed influential groups including Bauhaus, Cocteau Twins, and Pixies. That same year, they would release their first recording, a mini-album entitled Scar. Combining elements of shoegaze, post-punk, and jangle pop, Scar is a sonically diverse record that cannot be pinned down to one genre. It was a strong first release for the band, as it was well received by critics. The UK music newspaper Sound listed Lush as the brightest hope for music in 1990, alongside Pixies, the Stone Roses, and the Sundays. While the band received acclaim for contributing to the shoegaze sound, it should be noted that they have tried to distance themselves from being associated with the genre. In 1990, Lush would release 2 EPs, with the first entitled Mad Love. It had a more polished sound than Scar, with the song De-Luxe being a high point on the release. One major highlight on the record is the harmonizing vocals of Anderson and Berenyi, which complement each other naturally. Their following EP, released 8 months later, was called Sweetness and Light, this time in collaboration with Talk Talk producer Tim Fry-Ass-Green. The release distanced itself from the post-punk sound in the band's earlier records in favor of a more atmospheric dream pop sound. In particular, the title track became a fan favorite of the band. The EP received mixed reviews from critics, with NME considering it glorious, while Melody Maker deemed it sorely overproduced. Following its release, the band embarked on a series of tours in the United States and Japan. In conjunction with these tours, Lush released their compilation album Gala in order to introduce themselves to American and Japanese markets. The album failed to chart, but it was a critical success. After an incredibly eventful 1990, Lush released Black Spring the following year, their third EP. It sounded more innovative and not as overproduced as their previous release, as the band began experimenting with sequencers and MIDI to create unique guitar and drum sounds. Described as space-age guitar pop, Anderson's increased songwriting role contributed to Black Spring's moody dream pop sound. A promotional video was released for the leading track Nothing Natural, which Berenyi described as an effing nightmare, and that the video's director had some ludicrous idea of what he wanted Lush to look and act like in the video, and it was nothing to do with how the band was. It did, however, further increase the popularity of the band, with Kurt Cobain becoming a fan after seeing the video. In 1992, Lush would release their first full-length studio album, Spooky. Once again produced by Robin Guthrie, the album reached the top 10 in the UK album charts and produced 3 singles, For Love, Super Blast, and the aforementioned Nothing Natural. A continuation of their angelic and soothing sound, some listeners criticized Guthrie's production as underwhelming and sounding similar to Cocteau Twins. Despite receiving some criticism, Pitchfork ranked Spooky at number 27 on its list of the 50 best shoegaze albums of all time in 2016. More than 2 years would pass before Lush would release their second studio album, Split. They would collaborate with Mike Hedges, a producer who had worked with some of the greatest acts of British music, including The Cure and U2. Released alongside the two singles Hypocrite and Desire lines, the record was not as commercially successful as Spooky, but received praise for being introspective and emotionally turbulent. It was also more sonically diverse from their previous releases, whether it be the jangling xylophones on Light from a Dead Star or the hard-edged punk sound of Undertow. Many fans consider Split to be Lush's greatest record, and on par with other shoegaze classics like My Bloody Valentine's Loveless or Slowdive Souvlaki. The final studio album Lush would release would be nearly 2 years after Split in March of 1996. Entitled Love Life, the record distanced itself from a shoegaze sound in favor of a Britpop style instead. The shift in sound is immediately evident when listening to the opening track Lady Killers. Featuring feminist themes and new wave sound, the track was praised as a welcome antidote to Britpop's masculine point of view. Another highlight on the record is the track Chow, which features the guest vocals of Pulp's Jarvis Cocker duet singing with Berenyi.
I've been so happy since I walked away. I never thought.
While some Lush fans were turned away from the record's pop sound, the record was commercially successful and was praised for being a contemporary Britpop album. After being sent on tour with the Gin Blossoms, the band members were experiencing exhaustion, and Anderson was considering leaving the group. While there was talk of recording a small and more personal album, all plans were disbanded when Acland tragically committed suicide in October of 1996. Devastated by the loss of Acland, Lush went on hiatus but did not officially break up until February of 1998. Over the following years, Berenyi took a job as a magazine production editor, while Anderson formed a new group called Sing Sing. It wouldn't be until September of 2015 that Lush would announce a reunion on Facebook. All three surviving bandmates regrouped, along with Justin Welch from Elastica on drums. Lush released a vinyl edition of their compilation album and embarked on a series of performances in London and the United States. To further celebrate their reunion, the band released their final EP, Blind Spots, in April of 2016, more than 20 years after their most recent album. Described as a throwback to their shoegaze and dream pop days, Blind Spot went to show that Lush could still release an excellent record decades later. However, Lush would amicably split up in late 2016, issuing a statement saying, "It is now time for us to return to our families and homes and bring our time together as a band to a close." Lush continues to be a force of female songwriting and inventiveness. Through their music, they told tales of infidelity, desire, and death. Although the former bandmates have now gone their separate ways, their innovative, ethereal sound textures and unique vocal harmonies make them much more than a shoegaze band.